بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير. وآتينا موسى الكتاب وجعلناه هدى لبني إسرائيل ألا تتخذوا من دوني وكيلا ذرية من حملنا مع نوح إنه كان عبدا شكورا.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Indeed, all thanks and praises for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We seek His help. We indeed seek His help alone. We seek His help and we seek His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evil within ourselves and the consequences of evil actions. Indeed, whomever Allah guides will never be led astray, and whoever Allah leads astray, allows to go astray, will never find guidance. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, without any partners. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is a slave and messenger. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reiterated when He said, O you who have believed, be conscious of Allah. Be conscious of Allah as is due to Him, and do not die except in submission to Him. Indeed, the most truthful speech is the book of Allah, and the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the worst of affairs are the newly invented matters, and every newly invented matter is a religious innovation, and every religious innovation is misguidance, and every misguidance leads to a hellfire. May Allah protect us. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear sisters and brothers in Islam. Alhamdulillah, we are here for a specific purpose. Alhamdulillah, we are here only for one purpose, and that is to find a direction, to find a solution, to unite for a cause, and to know why we're here, why we have to be here, what is the cause, and how to move ahead besides just talk about the cause. The first reminder is in the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, as is reported in Sahih Bukhari by one of the companions of Rasulullah, Abu Nu'aym bin Bashir, that Rasulullah said, you see the believers as regards their being merciful among themselves. يعني, one of the signs of a true believer is the rahmah they have towards one another, the mercy, the compassion they have towards one another. And he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as regards the believer, they're being merciful, them being merciful towards one another, as well as loving one another. So the two signs that was mentioned, one is the mercy that a believer shows towards another Muslim, and the fact that a true Muslim, the one who have submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has love for their brothers and sisters in Islam. And thirdly, they have kindness. So you see the believers as regards their being merciful, showing love among themselves, and being kind. And one of the signs of true mercy, love, and kindness towards our siblings in Islam, he also made clear in the same hadith, when he gave the example of the Muslim Ummah as kamasal jasad, resembling one body. When one part of the body, any part of the body, is not well, is in pain, what happens to us? Even a single part, a tiny little part of our body is in pain. Just the tip of the finger, what happens to the rest of us? Sometimes we can't even sleep. If you have an ear infection, what happens? If your tooth aches, what happens? If your toe aches, what happens? You're in pain, right? You may not be able to sleep well. You may not be able to function well. You are focused on your pain. You try to treat the pain through dua and dawa, yani through supplication and medication. You don't just ignore it, because the pain won't let you ignore it. So Rasulullah said that you see the believers as regarding themselves, one another, that they are merciful towards one another, that they show love to one another, that they are kind to one another, resembling one body. So that if any part of the body is not well, the whole body shares the sleeplessness and the fever with it. The question is, to myself and you, how many more reminders from the Quran and Ahadith will it take? How many more stories of sufferings and injustices will it take? How many more talks will it take? How many more videos and pictures will it take? How much more of a loss will it take? How many more lives will it take for us to feel enough of the pain to continuously work towards the solution of the cause and not just temporarily treat the symptoms? And as soon as there's a ceasefire, as soon as there is less of a loss of property, of life, less of pain temporarily, that we go back to our distracted and delusional life, turning a complete blind eye towards the continuous and growing disease and continuous and growing injustices on the Muslims all around the world. All around the world. Whether these are the Muslims of Palestine, or Kashmir, or in Burma, or in Syria, or Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan, China, Bangladesh, wherever you see. It's a continuous problem. So why is that we don't continuously think about it? Work towards it, individually and collectively. What would it take for us to do that? The question is, what are we doing individually to help the situation of the Ummah collectively? If you truly feel the pain but don't know what to do or how to, then pay heed, but this is why we're here. Less of talking about the solution, the problem, but more of the talking about the solution. Everyone knows the problem. We see it. We hear it. We even feel it, hopefully. But we need to know what to do, what is solution, individually and collectively. What can I do? The direction is what is missing. So there are two things which are clear, I think, in my opinion. If not amongst all the masses, most of the people are, because of the access to internet, are clear about two matters. One, the problem. Most people are aware, if not all. Alhamdulillah, blessing of the internet access. A lot of people are also aware of the solution. Some of them, if not most. The problem is the bridge, the gap, the void between the two, the problem and the solution. How to get from one place to the other. What is the direction? Who will lead? How will lead? If there is no lead, what can we do individually? Drop by drop, making notion, and thus collectively. My beloved siblings in Islam, and anyone who claims to be our ally, firstly, from all my heart, I would say, do not be discouraged from what you witness or experience of injustices within your life or those around, no matter how far physically. It may seem that the unjust is getting away, hurting this ummah within this temporary world. But our greatest consolation is the fact that where will they hide in hereafter, the eternal world, in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most just. That's the first thing. So do not be discouraged. Do not be discouraged. Secondly, and nevertheless, despite of our belief in akhirah, the eternal life, and the justice of the most just, there are laws of His in dunya for us. And there is the sunnah, the way of His last prophet and messenger, our beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which we find the guidance from the infinite wisdom and knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is beyond our mere opinions, which could be defective. For Allah knows what we do not. So besides our consolation in the eternal justice, we have to realize that there is a communal obligation that is placed upon us by the one who has placed us on this earth. And there is an individual obligation also placed upon us by Him. And we must also remember that with every blessing comes a responsibility. And with every responsibility comes an accountability. And if you and I are not going to do and say what ought to be done and said, then know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace us with those who will. We are very much replaceable in dunya, for we will be held accountable in akhirah also. And there's no way out of it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages, honors, and loves those who are fearless of the creation in doing and saying what must be done due to their fear of the Creator and the love of the Creator and belief in the wisdom and benefit of the laws of the Creator. So the first thing that I mentioned that should be absolutely clear that should protect us from being hopeless, that should protect us from going to despair, is the consolation of the eternal justice. The second matter is, despite of that, we can't just sit and wait for that eternal life because of whatever facilities and knowledge and abilities we have, these blessings. We will be held accountable for it because responsibilities attached to every blessing. So the more you have of what you have, the more you'll be held accountable, you and I. Hence, it is important to remember the words of Rasulullah where he said, as reported by Sahih Muslim, narrated by Abu Hurairah, 1, whoever amongst you sees an evil action, then let him change it biyadi, with his hand, يعني by taking action. If he cannot, فإن لم يستطيع فبلسانه, then with his tongue, يعني speaking out about it. And if he cannot, فإن لم يستطيع فبقلبه, then with his heart, يعني to at least feel in your heart, and that is the weakest of faith, how wrong something is, the injustice. In other words, Rasulullah actually said that beyond that, there is not a mustard seed's worth of faith. And if you don't even feel it in your heart, the pain or the anger, the encouraged, the mustahab anger, when the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are trespassed, when injustice is done, you don't feel anything. The hurt, the pain, the anger, nothing. It seems in this situation, there is no faith, no iman in this person's heart. But the first thing is to change it with your hands. Then speak about it. And then, if not, you can't do that. It's impossible. There are restrictions. You can't even speak about it. And the least is to feel it in your heart. So I will first pray to invoke the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hearts of those in authority around the Muslim world to join hands and arms to protect and strengthen the protection of Muslims around the world, regardless of the race or nation. For in Islam, there is only one nation, the Muslim Ummah, with no borders, no language, no color, no background, no gender that divides us, but only unites us. But if the people in authority of a specific area or region or the Muslim world at large do not overtake and do not undertake their responsibility, do not overtake the enemy, do not undertake the responsibility they owe to the Muslims, then the sin is theirs, but the burden of sin is incurred upon all of us if we do not, within the legal bounds, do what is within our capacity. Of the 10 practical steps that I want to direct our attention towards, there are 10 practical steps that each one of us can do without the need for taking permission, without any restriction, and without being just a suggestion, but a direction. 10 practical steps. Whether it is the moral, physical, or economic strength of the Ummah, boycotting and weakening the enemy, propagating, preparing, stepping up in the cause of Allah. Whether it is charitable activities and utilizing other strengths and resources within the Ummah to provide our individual and collective services. Whether it is the mental health services, emotional support, legal representation, or the dire need for long-term planning and solutions, educating, bringing forward and supporting Islamically aware policymakers, lawmakers, scientists, mathematicians, intellectuals, Islamic content media, the IT experts, Muslim businesses, supporting all of that and much more, amongst of all of them that I will speak about in the next session in part 2, today I just want to direct towards one matter. Of all these 10 matters, today I just want to speak of one matter. The most neglected yet most powerful tool that each and every one of us is equipped with to help ourselves and our siblings in Islam around the world. Something that no matter where you are, how you are, who you are well equipped with a tool that you can utilize without being dependent on anyone else. And this is the power of unconditional dua, supplication. We often forget who is the Lord of us all. We think that because on surface things are not good, we are helpless, we don't have the authority figures around the world doing anything or directing us to do something to make a difference practically, that there's no way out now. Unless somebody goes and does something illegal and creates more fitna. We feel this in despair, we feel the kind of despair, a sense of despair or helplessness because we forget the source of all help, the source of all hope, the source of all strength and abilities. When we forget Him, then we forget the most neglected part of all the tools that we have, which is based on the way of Rasulullah, the Sunnah of Rasulullah, and those who followed him of the first generations. A dua, unconditional dua. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not send us on this earth to tell us now you can obey me as you want, you can live your life as you want, but rather send His messengers to direct us, to guide us, to teach us what to do, when and how, then why is that we don't first look into that? Okay, when this situation came in whatever form in front of the messengers of Allah, especially the last of them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did He do? What did He teach us? What did He guide us towards? Let's start from there. That's not the only step. That's the first step. The most powerful one. Whenever a calamity, nazila, befell the Muslims, what did Rasulullah teach us? What should be done? The first thing, one of the things, is dua al-qanut. Unconditional dua, unconditional supplication. And it is from the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We know about it. We've heard it. We've read it. We've even taught it. The question is, are we doing this every single day? To make dua al-qanut after standing up from ruku'ah in the last rak'ah of each of the 5 daily mandatory prayers. Are we doing this? Who's stopping you and I from doing this? Who? The authority? The enemy? Your family? Who's stopping you? No one. So why don't we start from what we can? Not only what we can, the basis, the foundation, something that we all have, the tool that we all are well equipped with. But this is the sunnah. This is the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and those who followed him. If you can't even do this, what about all these other bigger claims that you and I make? Dua al-qanut, a dua I'm going to speak of a little bit of detail in a bit and take your questions on it. It's simple supplication, invoking Allah's help. In the last unit of the mandatory prayer, the mandatory salah of the 5 daily salah, not just Fajr, of the 5 daily prayers, until Allah relieves the Muslims of that calamity. Until Allah relieves the Muslims of that calamity. It is proven in the Sunnah of Rasulullah. He made the dua al-qanut at times of calamity with words that were appropriate to that particular situation. So there are no specific wordings. We have a few different versions of the kind of supplications that were made by Rasulullah and those who followed him, of the companions, for instance, the Umar ibn al-Khattab, amongst others. But there are no fixed wordings even. It's so easy. What is that is preventing us from doing this every single day? Every single day. And 5 daily prayers, the last unit, the last rak'ah. Qanut at times of calamity is called Qanut al-Nazilah. This is the first of the 10 things that we will talk about. We will talk about many other matters of the boycott and this and this and this. We'll talk about that, how to prepare for a long-term permanent solution and what to do temporarily to relieve the Muslims of their struggles, and what services can we provide of the knowledge and expertise that we have, the abilities we have. We will talk about all of that in the next session, but today, my focus is only on molding our worries and our distress and our anger and our pain into the supplication, invoking Allah. When praying Qanut at a time of calamity, first of all, as I mentioned, we need to make supplication as is appropriate to the situation. Right? That's number one. For instance, Rasulullah had cursed some Arab tribes who had betrayed the companions and killed them. He prayed for the weak and oppressed believers in Makkah. We have many references. Umar ibn al-Khattab also prayed Qanut following the Sunnah of Rasulullah, appropriate to that particular situation. The famous dua, Allahumma inna nasta'inuka. So, if you know that I don't have to use any specific wordings, even though if I use the wordings proven in the ahadith of Rasulullah or the athar of the Sahaba, then that'll give me a good foundation to build upon. You can add to it according to the situation, asking Allah to help the Muslims and to destroy the enemies. So this is the first matter to be clear about when I talk about Qanut al-Nazilah. The second matter is about this supplication, which is constantly asked about. Can we make the supplication in our own words? As I said, because there are no specific rulings, specific wording, so can we make dua in our own words for somebody who doesn't understand Arabic? Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah said in Al-Majmu'ah that yes, it is permissible. And this is the most correct view, according to the majority of the scholars. Rather, any supplication can be made. And then he gave the example of Umar ibn al-Khattab. Shaykh Albani rahimahullah said there's nothing even wrong in adding to that supplication of Umar ibn al-Khattab in the Athar. And he said that it's even permissible to send blessings upon Rasulullah and praying for the Muslims, cursing the enemy. And you can do that. And Qiyam Ramadan by Shaykh Albani rahimahullah. Now, the third matter is within this first solution. Because, usually when we talk about other solutions, whether it's a long-term one or other matters, people find it a little difficult because they feel like I have to put an effort. I have to do something, where I have to invest time and energy or money or this and that. So let's start with the easiest, the most basic, yet the most powerful, and propagate as much of it as possible. So the third matter concerning this first solution, unconditional dua, is, okay, I have to pray, make this supplication in the last unit, the last rak'ah of every salah, the mandatory salah. But then the question is, the third matter concerning it, should it be before ruku', bowing, or after? Now, what we know from the ahadith of Rasulullah and the opinion of most of the scholars from what they have derived from the ahadith of Rasulullah, that the supplication, this dua, comes after ruku', yani after you bow down and when you get up, stand up. But if you say this qunut before the ruku', that is also acceptable according to the majority of scholars. So you have the choice of doing ruku' when you have finished reciting Quran, then standing up, saying Rabbana lakal hamd, and then say the qunut. Or you can say qunut when you have finished reciting the Quran, then say Allahu Akbar and bow down. Both are reported to be correct, and Allah knows best, as was reported by Shaykh ibn al-Qamin rahimahullah amongst the others. Did Rasulullah raise his hands in qunut? That's the fourth matter. Shaykh Albani rahimahullah wrote a lot about this, and he mentioned a report from Anas ibn Malik radhiyallahu anh, that when the Quranic reciters were killed, that he said that I never ever saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam painfully agitated about anything as I saw him agitated that day for them, when those Hufad were killed. And then Anas ibn Malik radhiyallahu anh said that I indeed saw Rasulullah in the early morning prayer raising his hands, yani within salah, raising his hands and supplicating against those who killed them. This is reported by Ahmad in his Musnad. So it's a Sahih Hadith, as reported by Ahmad rahimullah. So what we know from this is that when you make the dua in the last raka'ah, last unit of the 5 mandatory prayers, you can do it before or after bowing down, but it's better to do it after the yani when you have bowed down, you got up. In the Sunnah, it is proven that Rasulullah raised his hands when making this dua. And this is what we should do as well. Shaykh Albani rahimahullah said, raising of the hands in the qunut for a problem afflicting the Muslims is established sunnah, is an established sunnah. However, when you raise the hands to make dua, it does not mean that you have to wipe now these hands on your face after you've ended the dua. And this is true within and outside salah. It is not proven in the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to wipe the face after making dua, in or outside salah. It is not proven. It is famous, is well known, it is not only well known but commonly practiced, but it is not proven from the sunnah. The question, the sixth matter concerning this is, can we make dua in our own language though? Okay, we can add to the supplication, we can consider the specific situation in order to know what exactly to say, but can we make this dua in our native language. Now we know that within Salah, whether or not one can make a dua in one's own language is a matter of difference of opinion among scholars, okay? And all these views are respectable. However, the view which is the strongest and the soundest and Allah knows best, that yes, if a person does not know Arabic, right? The person just doesn't know Arabic. Then that person only who does not know Arabic can make the appropriate dua according to situation, following the Sunnah of Rasulullah in their own language. However, the one who knows Arabic, they should make the dua in Arabiya. And this is the majority opinion, inshallah ta'ala, the most correct, or it is the most sound opinion. It's not something as a general rule that we follow, because of course, generally it is not permissible to say any part of the salah in any other language than Arabic, or to use any of our words. The exception to this is in this situation, for instance, when there is a non-Arab who doesn't know Arabic, may even be learning, but doesn't know Arabic yet. So because there's a genuine reason, and there's not enough time for this person to wait to learn Arabic, or, before the situation is resolved, then this person can benefit from the exception to the general rule and make dua in their own language, even within Salah. This is the majority opinion. And 2 of the 4 madahib, the Shafi'is and the Hanbalis, are of this opinion. It doesn't matter what the language is even. We do respect all the opinions. But as a teacher of fiqh who teaches all the, not just 4 but 5 madahib, these 2 views, even though both are respectful, but the view that it is permissible for a person to make dua in their own language because they don't know Arabic is the most sound, most practical opinion. And Allah Wa'ala. The same as in sujood. The same rule applies in sujood. And we have many fatawa on this, al-fatawa al-kabir, for instance. But the suggestion and what is better is that while you don't know Arabic, for those who don't, and you are benefiting from this exception, it is better to learn the sunan supplications in the original language, number 1. And it is also better to make the preference of learning Arabic as your preference. So you can learn Arabic alongside, no matter how long it takes, and try to learn the sunan supplications, especially in salat. And that is preferable. Before I go to the next matter concerning this first solution, remember one thing: do not underestimate this. Sometimes the easiest and the most powerful tools are the most underestimated tools. And we talk a lot about, if I could do this, then I would do this. If I could do this, I would do that. If I had this support, or I had this direction, or I had, these facilities or resources, I would do this. If you can't even get up, do wudu, pray on time, and remember the Muslims, showing your love, kindness, mercy for them as you would love for yourself. If you can't bother with remembering them in your salah, in your meeting with Allah, if you don't remember them then, if you can't even do this, how can you do anything else? How can you bear the heat of the sun, the sore feet while walking towards the enemy, or standing up strong with your head high, without fearing the creation but only the Creator? How can you do anything with any other tool or resource or support if you can't do what is the easiest with your own limbs of just standing up with your hands laid in front of you, crying before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these Muslim siblings of ours? Just one rak'ah of every salah, the last rak'ah. When you get up from your ruku', from your your bowing, just raise your hands and make dua for them. And the reason I touched upon the fact that you can add to these applications already mention the sunan and the athar of the sahaba, or you can even, make it according to the situation as in the sunnah, and you can make it in your own language so that you don't have any excuse. But that's why I didn't do it, because I didn't have the booklet with me. I didn't have this with me. I don't know, the Arabic supplication or this. So you don't have no excuse. If we feel this pain, whether it is Palestinians or anyone around the world, because you see many of the Muslims who are oppressed, who are going through injustice, just because everyone is not covered by the media does not mean that they're not going through it, or they haven't gone through it, or they don't have the fear of going through it. So remember, all of them, specifically the Palestine, making dua specifically for protection of Masjid al-Aqsa, knowing why we have to make this supplication. Why is it important? Not turning a blind eye to the information that we receive of the sufferings of the Muslims, because you see, if you turn away saying, no, I feel helpless, then I feel angry, I cannot do anything, so I don't want to watch, I don't want to see. The fact is, if you don't want to watch and see or hear or talk about it, how will you feel it enough to do something about it? Starting from a mere dua. Isn't it the day that you actually get to hear about it, read about it, watch something concerning it, talk about it, is the day that you remember them more? So when you don't connect with them, when you are disconnected through your limbs or your physical faculties, even your hearing inside, then you get disconnected in your heart also. And then you go back to the delusional world that you were living in, distracted by dunya. So don't turn a blind eye towards it just because you feel that you cannot do something, because you can. Wallah, you can. I will reiterate this. Do not underestimate the power of dua. Unconditional dua. Unconditional dua. Do not underestimate this. Shaitan would tell you, oh, this is nothing. This is a solution. This is the first solution. This is not the only solution. This is the first solution. Yes. It doesn't end here, but it begins from here. If you don't invoke the help of Allah, you can't do anything, by the way. Did not Aisha Lahuan tell us that even if the shoelace broke, even if your shoelace broke, before mending it, ask Allah for help? Now, how can you and I think that we can do anything with the help of Allah? How can you and I think that we can do anything without the help of Allah? And if you feel that, okay, I need direction, then maybe it is your dua, because of which Allah will direct your heart. If you don't know what to do, start with dua. Stop relying on the creation. Stop being only angry at the creation, thinking that because no one is telling us what to do, or we don't have support, we don't have resources, we don't have, the help and all of that, that's why I can't do anything. Ask Allah for help. Rely on Him with unconditional reliance. Sometimes our supplications are accepted. The help is given. The direction is granted. We're just not listening. We're just not paying heed. In today's session, I only wanted to cover this much. And I will invoke the fear of Allah in my heart and yours. I will invoke and pray to Allah to instill the love and the fear and the unconditional trust on Him in our hearts. Because part of trusting Allah unconditionally is to trust His qadr, the preordainment, the destiny. Nothing is wasted. No loss, no life, no pain, no suffering. Nothing is wasted, and this should be our belief. Remember that suffering is one of the most important factors for building character in Islam. Theoretic training has no value if a person doesn't go through pain, whether it's emotional, physical, whatever pain and hardship. Trial must accompany character building. Even Iman, our faith, is in need of suffering sometimes to probe its depth and measures to the extent that is needed. Sometimes it is the suffering that we witness that wakes up our Iman, gathers us together, unites us. So do not question the decree of Allah. Do not become weak. For Rasulullah ﷺ had very clearly guided us, instructed us rather, that the strong believer is more beloved to Allah than the weak believer. Even though there's goodness in both, for they're believers. But the strong one is more beloved to Allah. And Rasulullah also told us to strive towards doing what is beneficial, to keep on striving and be sincere towards Allah and not become weak. Do not sound or look weak as a Muslim. Do not be in despair and weak in your heart as a Muslim. Do not be hopeless and helpless as a Muslim. And that's the least you can do. That's the least you can do. And one of the signs of strength of a Muslim is his or her unconditional trust in Allah. Trust in His decree, trust in His laws, and trust in His words when He says, "Call upon me, I will respond." When you make dua, be so sure about the fact that He heard you, as-Sami', who hears all. That He saw you, al-Basir, who sees all. That He knows what's happening, for He is al-Alim, who knows all. When, how, in what form He will respond to the dua, you have to trust Him. But do not lose hope. It is your hope, extreme, unconditional hope, that can weaken the spirit of the enemy. It is your not going into depression or despair that can weaken the spirit of the enemy, the core of theirs. It's not to look or sound weak that can weaken the spirit of the enemy. And the source of all strength is Allah. So seek the strength from the source of it. In the next session, we will talk about, inshallah ta'ala, one, how to weaken the enemy on different fronts, starting from the economic, and how to strengthen the Ummah from different fronts, especially the economic strength. We will also talk about how to educate the Ummah to strengthen them spiritually, morally, to lay down the foundation first on a leveled ground, and then to build upon that, how to go about that practically, the direction, how to physically strengthen ourselves and others, how to propagate, prepare, and step up in the cause of Allah. Also, the charitable activities, utilizing other strengths and resources that we have individually first. We will look into figuring out the different strengths, abilities, knowledge, experience, and resources of all of us, and how to utilize them to serve those who are in dire need. For instance, the mental health services we can provide to these people. There's so many children, so many youngsters, so many of the elderly who need access to emotional support, mental health services. Then anyone from the legal field, as how can we provide the service of legal representation where needed? Then how can we work on the dire need of the long-term planning and solutions? Because dealing with the symptoms is not going to get rid of the problem. It's a continuous growing problem. Sometimes there's a high in it and sometimes a low. Sometimes it shows up in front of us and sometimes it doesn't, but still happening. Sometimes media is covering it to some extent. Sometimes it's not being covered at all. But it's there, it's continuous and it's growing, the roots of it. But the enemy takes so long in planning, propagating. What makes us think, considering the Islamic history and knowing the strengths and weaknesses of the enemy, that we can just one day just decide what to do and that will resolve the matter. No, there has to be propagation, education, preparation for a long-term solution. So we don't only deal with the symptoms of the problem, but the cause of it. And that does require educating, supporting, and bringing forward those who are Islamically aware, the policymakers, the lawmakers, and anyone who has whatever ability or knowledge or expertise, whether it's in science or, the intellectuals, whether it's those who are well aware of how, social media works, how the cyber world works, the IT experts to support the Muslim businesses, etc. There's so much that we will talk about practically, starting from our own neighborhood, our own societies, and then moving forward. But let's start with taking help from Allah, so that we are able to say and do what is pleasing to Him, acceptable to Him, that will earn His pleasure and His support. And when Allah is on the side or in support of someone, then they will find Him sufficient. For indeed, Allah is self-sufficient. Even though I'm going to have a second session next Sunday, don't think that this gap should be ignored now, because we'll just wait for the next session in order to know what else can we do besides this dua. Every single day from tonight, those in the subcontinent and those from other places, according to whatever your time zone is, every single day from tonight or from today till the next session, at least till then, let's promise ourselves that in every single salah, even those who are not able to pray to do so 5 times a day, make dua, invoking the help of Allah, the source of all strength. For indeed, la hawla la quwwata illa billah, there's no strength or power except with Him. To help the Muslims in different parts of the world, especially nowadays, the Palestine, but everyone around the world, to destroy our enemies, to weaken them, and to strengthen, console, and help the Muslim Ummah. Every single day. Can we do this from today till the next session and report back in the next session? Every single day. In your salah, all you have to do this. If you are going to pray, those of you in the subcontinent, if you're going to pray Salatul Isha right now, before in the last rak'ah, before you end your salah, the last rak'ah, the last unit of the prayer, after your ruku', your bowing, when you get up, just bring your hands together like a cup. Okay. When you're begging someone, in a manner that if someone puts something in your hand, it won't fall, like bring your palms together like a cup. And not only just make a dua that you have parrot, you've learned, and now you're going to parrot like a parrot, just utter it like a mindless dhikr. If you can cry for your siblings in Islam the way you would cry for your own self, do so. Invoke the help of Allah with all your heart, with all your might. Make as much dua as you can. And then, without wiping your face, just put your hands straight up. Then say Allahu Akbar. Raise your hands. And then go for sujood. But try to do this not only in the Salatul Isha, but Salatul Fajr and Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib. For this entire week, can we follow one another and do this, inshaAllah ta'ala, with our friends and family, remind everyone? And the next Sunday, inshaAllah ta'ala, we will then talk about these other matters. We'll talk about BDS and all of that also, inshaAllah ta'ala. What else can we do individually? What other matters are we not going to be restricted with? We don't need permissions from anyone. And that is something totally in our hands. We can do within our homes even. What else can we do? We'll talk about all of that, inshaAllah ta'ala. If you have any questions, you may ask. But my last, from all my heart, I am reiterating this again and again. Please do not underestimate the power of dua. You say, I don't have this, I don't have that. This is a tool we all are well equipped with. Allah has given it to us. Do you think that of all the things Allah has given to us that He will hold us accountable for, will He not hold us accountable for this? That He gave us this ability. The only thing is make it an unconditional belief and trust in Him. Unconditional means unconditional. No ifs and buts after that. In fact, after you make a dua, you should feel so much of hope and strength that the next 9 steps that we will cover in the next session, next Sunday, the drive behind that will be your dua. The drive behind that will be your dua. And that will become easy if you've been making dua, asking Allah's help. Inshallah ta'ala. So let's start with the most powerful, something which is the basis, the foundation, because it shows our tawheed. It shows the strength of our tawheed, our belief in our tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we first and foremost begin with resilience, unconditional trust, invoking the help of Allah, the Rabb of not only the Muslims, but of all the creation, even our enemy. Any questions you may ask right now, and inshallah ta'ala, we will then end the session here. Those of you who don't have any questions or who don't want to move ahead with checking out the others' questions and answers, you may just join us in the next session. The others may stay. Okay, so there's one question. Sure, okay, alhamdulillah. Is it right calling very bad, cursing them? When you see, you witness, experience that the enemy, whatever form they come in, are subjugating another creation, especially if it's a Muslim sibling, to injustice, then invoking the curse of Allah upon the unjust, it is reasonable, it is permissible. So you can, in that situation, invoke the curse of Allah upon the enemy, no matter what they're called, who they are. However, now we have to be a little careful. If it is a particular group of people and they do not represent all the people, like for instance, if it's Israel, which it is, if it is the Zionists, they do not represent all the Jews, because there are those Jews, Orthodox Jews, who are against the state, and they're against what they're doing to the Palestine. So now you cannot paint those people who are against this oppression from amongst the Orthodox Jews, especially, or the modern ones, even a little bit secular even Jews. You can't paint them with the same brush as the ones who actually are oppressors, because there are some who are. You can actually ask Allah to guide them towards Islam, the ones who are against this oppression of Israel on the Palestine, from amongst the Jews, the really modern secular one or the really Orthodox ones. You can make dua to Allah that He guides them to Islam. But if they are claiming to be the allies, or they are, also talking against outrightly and stepping up against the oppression, then we cannot then paint them with that same brush just because they're also Jews. At the same time, you can make dua to Allah because if they're that strong, they're standing up against their own leaders, or they are going against the peer pressure, then maybe such strong people who are fearless of the other creation will be beneficial for the Muslim Ummah if they become part of the Ummah. So make dua to Allah to guide them towards Islam, as Rasulullah had made dua for the two Umar to strengthen the Ummah, right? So that is something you should do, and you should not then paint them with the same brush if they are not really in favor of that oppression. Okay. Okay, so there's another question. Can we pray in my native language for my siblings in Islam? Yes. So that I can do so. Yes. We just covered this. For instance, Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, from the traditional scholars and from our era, Sheikh Albani rahimullah and Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimullah, I mean, they have all allowed it. They are of the view that yes, we can. The two of the four main madhahib, the Shafi'i and the Hanbali view, are of this opinion also, that yes, we can in our own language. For a person who does not know Arabic, for the person who does, their salah will become invalid if they make dua in any other language. But for the person who does not know Arabiya, for them, in the meantime that they're learning, it's better to make supplication which is from your heart, because the sincerity of the heart, that is important if you don't know the language, right? It is better to learn a sunnah supplication. It is better, or the supplications that are proven even from the athar of the Sahaba, for instance, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh. But because there are no fixed rules, fixed wordings, then you can add to it, you can change according to the situation. All right? How to respond to kids when they ask if Israel can come and attack Pakistan? Educate them, keep on educating them. One of the benefits of the access that we have to internet is to, even if for a person, like for instance, one of the mothers mentioned, she and her husband, they were saying that we're not educated enough to educate our children with the right information. We're scared of even telling them something which is not correct, or in a manner which is not correct. But I told them, I mean, now you have so much access to those who do have knowledge, whether of history or whether of you're teaching them some tafsir of the Quran, and teaching the tafsir of an ayah of the Quran. You have access to people who are knowledgeable. So then just connect yourself and your children or younger siblings or students, whoever is under your authority, to those with knowledge, and you also gain knowledge. There's always a first time, inshallah. Since the oppression is going on all the time nowadays in many places, should we make this a habit to do always? Well, it's not the sunnah of Rasulullah that he did it always. It's not the sunnah of Rasulullah that he always did it. It is not what the Sahaba Sahabiyat did, because this is how they understood from the sunnah of Rasulullah. It was only when it was the peak of injustice, or it was something major that was brought up to the attention, then they did it. He didn't do it all the time, so doing it all the time I'm afraid would be kind of bid'ah. Yeah. However, you can do it as long as the calamity that has befallen the Muslims is not taken away. So, for instance, even if that takes weeks or months, that then it's okay, according to the majority of the ulama. Okay, if a person feels that this is something that it's not only a matter of a few days or weeks, but it's something that has been going on for months, then, according to the majority, it's the Sunnah of Rasulullah and the way of not only Rasulullah, but the way it was understood by Sahaba Sahabiyat from Rasulullah, that they kept on making the dua till the calamity was not removed. They were not relieved of it. So in that sense, if you see that, there is no real relaxation, it's something which the injustice is still going on, because we just found out even after ceasefire, for instance, Palestine, there were still, there are a few people who still have been martyred. And there were clashes with the police and everything around Masjid al-Aqsa, even after ceasefire. So you can continue making dua. It doesn't mean that ceasefire has happened, then it hasn't really resolved the problem at all, right? So you shouldn't stop. Yeah. Okay. This question, Sister Maryam Zahid, Jazakallah khairan for this question. This question has come up a few times. So in our next session, one of the things that we're talking about, how to utilize the facilities, the resources that we have, like around us. Even for instance, even if there are 10 people, they're like, we're available here. We have certain different different various skills and knowledge and abilities and resources. What can we do? We can direct, inshallah ta'ala. We can direct you. And one of the things is those who don't know how to address their children or their siblings or younger students who are minors, how to educate them. What is the manner of educating them without scaring them, or if they're scared, how to, deal with that, to console them, yet to not let them live in a bubble. You know what I mean? So we will, guide you how you guys, those who are of this concern, can get together and what you can do, inshallah ta'ala. Even if there's 10 people, the biggest difference that has ever been made in the human history always began with a handful of people. It was never like a large group, really. It always starts from a handful of people. So when you're strong in yourself, only then you can help another to strengthen them. You cannot pour from an empty glass, right? So we can start from, we can guide you to start from a small group, inshallah ta'ala, in this process. It's common practice to recite dua qunut in witr. No, the qunut in witr is something totally different. That's totally different. This is not that. And this qunut is supposed to be made in the last rak'ah of each of the 5 daily prayers. The witr one is totally different. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Let me tell you something. One of the greatest things that has helped, because I have students who are from the Middle East, who are in these areas, who really, really, really have strongly reiterated this fact. They're like, one of the things that has really helped us to not be hopeless and to be strong at the face of these extreme calamities is the strength of Tawheed. Now, how can your Tawheed, your belief in the oneness of Allah, become strong without you consciously, actively seeking knowledge of it authentically? So the stronger your knowledge of the oneness of Allah, your belief hence will also become stronger. And that is what you can build upon everything else. Because if your Tawheed, your belief in the Tawheed is weak, everything else is weak. Yes. Okay, so there is one question. Yes, alhamdulillah, this is a very, very important point that you have mentioned. Yeah, alhamdulillah. I would suggest one thing, even though the details of this I'll cover in the next session, and I have to end it here so that you guys can inshallah ta'ala join us in the next session without overburdening. Injustice, dhulm, the very basic meaning of it linguistically is imbalance, right? When the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rights and duties that He has established for us, He has laid it down for us, the standard He has already set for us. When those rights and duties are not respected, are not honored, either because of lack of knowledge of them or lack of implementation, execution of them for whatever reason, automatically there will be imbalance in the society. And when there's imbalance, there will automatically be injustice, dhulm. One of the greatest things will be always has been and will be, is to establish the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the earth, being a khalifa, all of us being Bani Adam. And it starts with our own lives, our own homes, our own neighborhoods, our social circles, our own cities, countries, etc. So let's start with our own lives. and those around us. Establish the laws of Allah. And this is proof of our trust in Allah, proof of our yaqeen in the oneness of Allah and His infinite wisdom and justice, that we trust His laws unconditionally. Because it's not sufficient that you know the laws. People know a lot of things. They know this is mandatory, this is haram. But when they don't trust the laws of Allah to be the most fair, the most just, the most beneficial, when they don't trust that this is the law of the Creator, not the creation, then they make all the excuses of the world not to follow it. And when the laws of Allah are ignored, when they are not followed, they are not established, the rights and duties are not upheld, that's where imbalance begins from. So we can start from our own lives at least. Inshallah ta'ala. I'll end the session here in hope and pray that we gather together again, inshallah ta'ala, next Sunday for 9 other steps, practical steps that we can take besides the qanut and nazila, dua and nazila at time of calamity, and to learn 9 other steps that we can take individually and then collectively to help the oppressed Muslims around the world, inshallah ta'ala. But I hope and pray that even if we do not reach tomorrow, let alone next Sunday, that the moments we have, even the few hours that we have, that we set our affairs right individually first, privately first. So we, even if it's one day or the entire week or entire lives, that we repent to Allah, return to Allah, and mend our affairs, our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we live a life in Islam. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all life in Islam with the best of ilm, amal salih, iman, best of health, wealth, happiness, unity, respect, honor, best of this world, to give us life in Islam, and to give us death in Islam doing the best of deeds, to be resurrected doing the best of deeds with the best of company, to make our crossing of the Sirat easy, to make our standing before Him easy, to enter us all together with our loved ones into Jannah Firdaus al-A'la without accountability and punishment. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give sabr and strength to all those who have lost their loved ones in Palestine and around the world because of the oppression and injustice, and to accept the martyrdom of those who have given their lives defending their iman, their wealth, their loved ones, the Muslims, Islam, and to make their akhirah easy, to honor them with the best of honor in akhirah, to take away any lurking sense of injury from their hearts, and to enter them into Jannah al-Firdaus without accountability and punishment, and us after them, inshallah ta'ala, with ease and honor, and to give the honor, the respect, with the unity and strength to this ummah, so that when we all gather in front of Him, that day become like an Eid. If we spend our lives in this world restraining ourselves from what is displeasing to Allah, as we do fasting in Ramadan, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the greatest blessing, the greatest gift of seeing His face morning and evening for the rest of our lives in Jannah, with Him never being displeased with us, but pleased with us for eternity. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.